Hello, everyone. This is Ken with Little Church Big Heart. I'm coming to you the week between Christmas and New Year's. And I wanted to take a few minutes to give you a Lord's Day encouragement and to encourage you to think differently about your church, your congregation, and where you're at. And I come at this because of some conversations I've had with some pastors this week about frustrations in their ministry. Things weren't going the way they wanted. They were thinking about moving on. Should they move on? And those issues often come up. And you see, I think some of this has to do with a dynamic that's really contributed to the ill health of small churches in this country, kept many of them smaller than they should be, and especially of rural churches in this country. You know, there's an old story about a seminary professor who used to tell his students, before you graduate, or after you graduate, before you take your first church, you need to buy yourself the biggest, heaviest, leather-bound Bible you can possibly find and possibly afford. And when asked why that he would say that it's because your first church is not going to be a big city, successful church, most likely. You will probably be sent to pastor, or the only opportunity you'll get to pastor and lead is in a small rural country church. And when you go to do visitation, you'll need that Bible to knock the dogs off of you on the way to the door. Now, I've been in that setting where getting into the house to visit meant walking through a manure-filled field. Sometimes it meant going through a pack of dogs, and other times it meant being herded to the door by a border collie or blue heeler. Being the size of a bull kind of helped with that, and they usually just wanted to try to move me along. But you see, that's the way it can be. But the problem with that story is that it has the assumption that it's our first church or our earliest churches, that it's not our permanent church or where we want to minister to for the rest of our life. It's a stepping stone. You see, churches, small churches and rural churches for too long have been treated as what I would call resume fodder. These are the churches that people don't really want. They don't want to go there. They don't want to be there. They want a big city church. They want to have a chance to make their name. They want to have a chance to have a church of thousands and a church with millions in their budget. They want a chance to have more people volunteering for the nursery than the average rural church has in Sunday morning attendance. And that's what they want and they hope for, many of these young pastors. But you see, the small churches and the country churches become resume fodder, and it's meant to be our first church, always a stepping stone. And they know it. The churches know it. I've been in communities where I talk to people and they're like, well, why can't the church keep a pastor? Every 3 years, every 5 years, the pastor leaves. Why is that? Are they being mean to the pastor? And usually it's just because that's what the church is there for or has been used for. And that's sad. You see, another part of this problem isn't just the idea of the first church or that resume church on our resume, but it can also be this whole thing of the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. That old saw is actually quite true. The grass looks greener on the other side of the fence, but we forget that it's because on the other side of the fence, somebody else is doing the mowing, the watering, and the fertilizing. We're doing all the work over on this side. And so it doesn't look as nice as the other side. That other side looks nice all the time. Mine only looks nice because I'm doing all this work. We don't know the work that's going in on that other side of the fence. You see, looking to the other side of the fence, looking to that other place that's so much better. And oh, it'll be better when I get there. And oh, it's not so bad there. Or it's going to be a blessing there. And I'll finally have what I deserve. And I'll finally have what God has called me to be. I'll finally be that. See, we need to mature beyond that. We need to start to realize that God puts us where he puts us. Now, the question I want to ask you, small church pastor and small rural church pastor, what would your church look like? What would your ministry look like? We're going into 2020, going into a brand new year. Think about how your ministry this year would look different if you had no alternative but to stay there till the day you die or the day you retire from ministry. That your choices were do pastoral ministry there or nowhere. That there was no other church waiting for you, no other church possibility for you to go to. That was going to be your lifelong ministry in that church where you are. Now, I know many of you are saying that I'd just leave ministry. I want you to rethink that for a second. Is it possible that there are things you would learn while you're there? Is it possible that God would transform you into a totally different person if he were leaving you there for the rest of your life? Is it possible that that church would be totally transformed by a pastor who doesn't have an escape hatch, by a pastor who can't jettison and jump and go to the next church? Would it be possible that our rural churches would be totally transformed by pastors who are committed to loving their church no matter what comes? Now, this doesn't mean you never leave. I'm not saying that you should be that way. There may come a time. If God says leave, leave. If God says go, go. If there's a time where it's better for your church for you to leave, you should especially leave. If it's time that it's better for your growth, time to leave. But I'm saying if we go there and we are committed to staying there the rest of our life, we should be ministering in a totally different way, and our churches will be transformed across this country. And I want to encourage you to think about that. To pray about that some as we're going into the new year. How would you transform your church if you were committed to being there and it was the only place you were ever going to be a pastor? God bless. Have a wonderful Lord's Day. Take care. Enjoy your family and enjoy your... If you haven't done so and you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the notification bell to be notified of future videos. You can also look us up on Facebook and at littlechurchbigheart.com. If there's any way we can encourage you, please leave a comment below.